Yo, so I believe most of you have seen that video of the 75-year-old man pushed over by police in Buffalo, New York, and when he hits the ground, blood starts coming out of his ears. It's such a horrible clip to watch. It's really difficult, and a lot of people were woken up by this. So many people who we've been trying to say, hey, pay attention to police brutality, finally were able to when they saw an old white man abused by the police. But he's okay. Don't worry. He's safe. He's recovering. But did y'all see when President Donald Trump tweeted about this guy, whose name is Martin Gugino, that he's an Antifa provocateur? He said, Buffalo protester shoved by police could be an Antifa provocateur. 75-year-old Martin Gugino was pushed away after appearing to scan police communications in order to black out the equipment. At ON, I watched. He fell harder than was pushed, was aiming scanner. Could be a setup? Question mark. Also, Twitter has been doing more to crack down on spreading misinformation. And they also said the reason that they couldn't do something about this tweet, obviously spreading misinformation, was because he ended it with a question mark. So it's just speculating. I liked this tweet that I found from Martin's friend where he said, kinda surreal when the president starts accusing your 75-year-old friend of being an agent of Antifa. My friend Martin Gugino is an old man with cancer who is now in the hospital with brain damage after being pushed to the ground by a police officer he was trying to talk to. Also, this is like a pretty cool Catholic dude. People have been posting about how he has spent years volunteering with the Catholic Worker Movement, which is a great organization, and going to plenty of protests during his retirement. And what's funny is I know plenty of old people like this. Elderly Christian people who just look at their life and think, well, I'm almost out of here. Let's just spend it stirring shit up and just going to as many protests as I can and just trying to support whatever movement is going on because I can't do much, but I'll do what I can. And reading about him, he very much seems like that kind of guy. And those who have done any sort of activist work at all have probably met the kind of people that I'm talking about. And he seems to have mainly participated in a lot of climate change activist events. And so there's plenty of pictures of him doing that over the years. And he's made plenty of friends. A bunch of elderly friends of his have been posting and even on videos saying, this guy is like super cool and nice. And this is really weird that the president has said this about him and that people are thinking that he's something he's not. But hey, let's just consider here. Maybe this particular day, he was feeling a little feisty. And he really did go to agitate the cops. He walked up to them to confront them and tell them something really nasty. Let's just say that's what he was doing. Sure, I really don't think that's what he was doing, but let's say he was. Here's what I think is really weird about the right-wingers criticizing him for that. We see so many right-wingers go on and on about free speech for everyone all the time. And even during the protests against the shutdown, we saw a whole bunch of right-wingers with guns pushing and screaming in the face of cops, fighting for what they believed in. And yet they're criticizing Martin Gugino for confronting the cops without a gun or anything. It's so hypocritical. And it's especially annoying because a bunch of them are sharing this screenshot of a tweet that he made where he said, F the police, quote tweeting someone else who said, F the police. I thought you cared about free speech. We're not allowed to say F the police. Also, look at everything going around you. He tweeted that during these protests. Everyone is justified to say F the police right now. Are your eyes even open? Oh my God. Also, I know it's retroactive, but after seeing what the police did to him, definitely justified in saying that. He could say that for the rest of his life. But here's the thing. Antifa is not what these right-wingers are saying they are. Trump even tweeted he wanted to declare Antifa as a terrorist organization. First of all, you can't do that because they're not an organization. There's no leadership structure. There's no headquarters. You can't be a member of Antifa. It's not a thing. Antifa isn't necessarily an ideology or a belief system or whatever. It is a form of action. It's simply people who see fascist movements rising up and decide to meet together with other people who see it and don't like it and decide to go do something about it and try to stop it from spreading. So Antifa is usually very localized because they'll see it in their community, they'll go do something about it, and when that is over, then they'll go back home and just keep doing whatever they were doing before. Anti-fascism has been around as long as fascism, so about 100 years. And Antifa, for short, has been around in the US for about 40 years. And Antifa got a huge spike in mainstream media attention in 2017 during the Charlottesville events. A whole bunch of conservatives got around to protest the taking down of Confederate statues, and a bunch of fascists got together to take advantage of that and do a Unite the Right rally, which resulted in local people seeing that, not liking it, wanting to put a stop to it, and going to counter-protest.
Jews will not replace us! Jews will not replace us! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter!
What just happened?
They maced me.
Who?
I don't know. Communists.
The whole goal of anti-fascist action is to find these little movements starting to spread with their fascist ideas and try to nip it in the bud as soon as you can, by any means necessary. And this is dangerous work. Fascists are dangerous people with dangerous ideologies that want people that look like me dead. So I appreciate anti-fascists very much. And what's funny is I know some people out there hear this stuff and think, oh, well, they're not really doing anything. I never met a fascist before. I never met a Nazi, a white supremacist. Why are they thinking that they're doing something? They're not out here. Yeah, here's the thing. If you have that thought, please be thankful for Antifa for that. You have the privilege to be ignorant of fascists because of the work of anti-fascists. Also, here's another thing. You may actually know of fascists, but you don't know they're fascists because they don't say they're fascists, because that will totally ruin their whole cause and get people to ignore them. So instead, they've had to rebrand themselves and make themselves appear more palatable to larger audiences. So they say things like, no, I'm a white nationalist who cares about my people, or I'm a identitarian who just really is committed to people having their own distinct identities, or stuff like that. So, for example, Richard Spencer, a neo-Nazi who has openly advocated for a white ethno-state, has been given plenty of platforms on mainstream media because he looks like a nice, dapper young gentleman just talking about identitarianism. And people were like, this guy's not a fascist. He just said he's not. A lot of people started hating Antifa when a young gentleman saw Richard Spencer and punched him in the face.
It's Pepe's become kind of a symbol.
And people were like, wow, Antifa, the real fascists. You don't know what fascism is if you think punching somebody in the face is at the same level as genocide. Also, actual fascists don't like when conservatives say that, oh, Antifa's the real fascists or Antifa's the real Nazis, because it makes their message a little bit harder to spread. Doesn't mean that people should spread it just to piss them off, because it just makes everything so much more confusing for everyone. But people have been posting about how Antifa are the real fascists, they're funded by Nazis and stuff like that. Fascists don't like Antifa. Here's a clip of neo-Nazi Nick Fuentes, who calls himself a paleo-conservative to disguise himself, expressing his frustration with conservatives calling Antifa the real fascists.
Why do we have to call them Nazis? Why can't we call them left-wing anarchists? Why can't we call them communists? Why can't we call them Bolsheviks? Why do we have to do these mental gymnastics to say, but they're actually Nazis? The Nazis used intimidation, and that's the same. I don't know, man. If Antifa were marching down the streets and they were waving the banner of Benito Mussolini or Francisco Franco, I'd be joining them, frankly. If Antifa was waving the banner of phalangism, if they were waving the banner of Franco, and they were saying, you know, Catholic fascism now, I would join them. I would become a part of Antifa. I would welcome Antifa. Yes, take over the country. Storm D.C., take over the Capitol. Raise the banner of Mussolini and Franco and, some notable others, right? Oswald Mosley, that would be a great thing. Oh, they're wearing black just like Oswald Mosley. Based? Sign me up. But they're not doing that. No, but they're not doing that. What does Antifa even mean? Of course, anti-fascist.
Fascists don't like Antifa because Antifa is a threat to fascism spreading. Also, years after the Charlottesville rally, there was an audio clip leaked of Richard Spencer so angry at Antifa disrupting his rally. This clip is pretty difficult to listen to. It's filled with a lot of racism, so if you want to skip it, just skip to this part.
We are coming back here like 100 times. I am so mad. I am so mad at these people. They don't do this to me. We're gonna ritualistically humiliate them. I am coming back here every weekend if I have to. Like, this is never over. I win, they lose. That's how the world works. Little clicks. They get ruled by people like me. Little octoroons. My ancestors enslaved those pieces of We're gonna win. I rule the world. Those pieces of get ruled by people like me. They look up and see a face like mine looking down at them. That's how the world works. We are gonna destroy this town.
Anti-fascist action has been proven to be a threat to fascists. And I know there are a lot of Christians out there who don't like picking sides because they want to love everyone. And so they feel like Antifa, it's too harsh. They have the word anti in their name. That doesn't sound very loving. But here's the thing. When it comes to picking sides, when one side wants to straight up kill the other side for simply being born minorities, you have to pick the side of the minorities. So people who commit anti-fascist action choose the side of the minorities. But you can't just be vaguely on their side. We must directly work to stop the efforts of the other side from killing them or from spreading their ideology that will lead to them being killed. And so many people who participate in anti-fascist action are anarchists and communists, simply because anarchists and communists are way more knowledgeable about fascism than everybody else, and so they're able to recognize signs of rising fascist movements. And so they're able to recognize when certain movements who are pretending to be something else will actually lead to fascism. Antifa is simply people who put themselves in harm's way to stop fascist movements from spreading because the police won't. Our government lets fascists live peacefully and comfortably. They don't do anything to stop it. Trump definitely hasn't declared the KKK as a terrorist organization. But people are saying Antifa has infiltrated the Black Lives Matter protests, when that definitely hasn't been proven. They only say that because there's been photos and videos of people who are wearing black and happen to have a black face mask. And you could see in this part of their face that isn't covered is white. That's the only thing they're going off of. Literally the only thing. They've investigated so many people they've arrested and no evidence of anyone who has ever been involved in anything Antifa related. And some may think, well, these are far extreme left mainstream media who is defending Antifa. No. What right-wingers call far left mainstream media, they have criticized Antifa, even lied about Antifa plenty of times. Also notice the subtle racism in saying the ones who are escalating things and are behind the large-scale organizing behind these protests are white Antifa kids. Kind of implying that black people can't do their own organizing and that black people wouldn't want to escalate things because they know their place. Antifa isn't this big, scary organization who's infiltrating these protests, and people who have participated in anti-fascist action, they're not even scary. One of the main reasons Owen said that Martin Gugino was a part of Antifa is because they found out he had participated in a couple online anarchist reading groups. Those also aren't that scary. Anarchist reading groups aren't reading groups where they discuss how to destroy America and eat rich people. No. You know what they talk about at those reading groups? Mutual aid. How to build sustainable communities where everyone's needs are taken care of without the need of the state. I loved this sarcastic tweet from my friend Labor Kyle where he said, "I'm very afraid of anarchists. They're always like, watch out, I'm going to do community aid and read the bread book. And hey, want a carpool? I'll throw in gas money. And have you seen this anime? It's so good. And hey, I wrote a poem. You want to see it?" They're not scary. I know plenty of anarchists. They're so chill. Also, there's this propaganda video that's been going around about exposing Antifa, interviewing this guy who infiltrated Rose City Antifa and is talking about how violent they are.
I've been undercover with Rose City Antifa since July of 2000.
Bruh, look at this dude.
Also, that video is so highly edited that I feel so bad for people who watch it and believe it and don't even question it. Also, it's hilarious. It's kind of difficult for them to show Antifa as super dangerous and violent. Because when Antifa talks about violence, it's all about self-defense and protection. Because they're putting themselves in situations where they have to confront fascists who are dangerous and want to commit violence among many people. That is dangerous. You have to learn how to fight. So plenty of people, when they organize together to go do a counter protest, teach each other basic fighting tactics. And those tactics usually have to do with ending the violence as soon as possible. So there's this part of the video where they're talking about eye gouging, just simply pressing on someone's eyes, and how that makes Antifa so dangerous.
Practice things like an eye gouge. It takes very little pressure to injure someone's eyes.
They do not hesitate to either push back or incite some kind of violence.
But that's like a move that you do so you can end a fight as soon as possible, so that no violence happens. Also, I love this part of the video where this guy said this.
The whole goal of this, right, is to get out there and do dangerous things as safely as possible.
And that's supposed to feel super scary, right? But if you zoom in on the background to what he was showing on the screen, you see this. Keep an eye on their buddy's emotional state and try to calm them down, comfort them when necessary. Leave with their buddy if they want to go for any reason. Provide support if their buddy gets arrested. This could mean passing on their details to a legal support person or arranging for someone to meet them when they get out of the police station. Get help if their buddy is getting hurt. This could be fighting off an opponent. Notice that? Fighting off an opponent. Fighting off an opponent. Calling an ambulance, finding a first aider, or asking someone with a camera to record the situation. This might make it all seem rather formal and difficult to maintain. In reality, it isn't. It's just a way of making sure no one gets forgotten in the confusion of an action and everyone has a friend to look out for them. This is the organization that Trump wants to declare a terrorist organization. So if you really want to have a debate about Antifa, I think the real good faith debate to be had is preemptive self-defense justified? Because, of course, the conservative argument is, well, you don't know that these people are fascists because they don't say they are. Like I said, we've got to stop these things from spreading while they're small. Hitler started out with just 45 guys. Benito Mussolini started out with 100 guys. I'm sure there were plenty of people back then saying, come on, it's just a group of guys who like hanging out and have different ideas. So I think anti-fascist action is important. Of course, not everyone can participate in it because it is so dangerous, but those who can definitely should, because like I said, nobody else is doing anything about it. So if any Christians are watching this and you care about life, you need to be anti-fascist. And you need to support anti-fascist action. And you need to be very careful of all the manipulative propaganda that is going on out there to get you to hate anti-fascists. Just stop and think about that, for real. Also, in thinking about all this as a Christian, I think about Jesus on the night he was arrested and killed in the Gospel of Luke, telling his disciples to sell their cloak and buy a sword. And they say, okay, we have 2 swords. And he says, that's enough. Some scholars believe that this is representative of a later Christian idea within the church that developed that started to tell each other it's okay to carry a knife for self-defense. I am definitely against using weapons to go out and terrorize people. But when you're trying to protect people, you're trying to protect yourself. And we're living in a society right now where people who want to kill people who look like me are totally allowed to run free and do whatever they want and spread their ideology with no one stopping them. Yeah, you really got to reconsider your stance on arming yourself. The state isn't going to protect me. And we're seeing through these protests that the state is one of the people enacting violence against so many vulnerable people that won't be protected by the state. That's another big reason why anti-fascist action and movements like that are very important to rise up during these times. Like I said, you don't have to participate in anti-fascist action because it is very dangerous, but you could do your part in combating lies that people try to spread about anti-fascist action. If you want to know more about Antifa, I put a bunch of resources in the description. Please check those out, especially if you think that Antifa is this super scary, dangerous organization and that they've infiltrated the Black Lives Matter protests. Please check out the resources. Keep exploring. Keep searching for the truth. Don't just buy into the propaganda and then refuse to look into anything else. So yeah, anyway, Martin Gugino is not Antifa. And even if he was, that's really not that scary of a thing to be at all. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/whoisdamon, where we stream all the time talking about this stuff in a more free-form and interactive way. You could join the Discord. Link is in the description of a bunch of people talking about this kind of stuff. And if you'd like to support me, I'd greatly appreciate it. Patreon.com/Damon Garcia. Shout out to all my patrons already over there. Balaj Vince Seidel, Blessed Are the Poor, Stephen Harp, Jan Jinsu Lapona, Alex Albatross, Angela Mamel, The Commie Christian, David, James Finlay, Julianne King, Keegan James, Kristen Mouse, Marina Black, Mimi McGann, New Transcendentalist, Onion, Peter A., Peter John Blake, Refined Your Scene, Samuel Sockway, and everyone else. Appreciate the support. Stay safe out there. Keep it anti-fascist. Bye-bye.